Hello there, I am Baron Bones. Welcome back to From the Crypt, and happy Halloween. This will be my last video on the show for the year. And I thought I'd end it by talking about Vincent Price. You see, the idiot who usually runs this show started last year a tradition of talking about Vincent Price annually, and some Vincent Price horror movies. He was going to do those every year on Halloween. But as the show is now mine, I agreed to continue the tradition. And today we will be talking about the Fly movies. So, I'm going to be doing this episode a little different. I'm going to be directly comparing these two movies to each other, as I feel like that would be the best way of doing this review. Without further ado, let's talk about them. So The Fly and The Return of the Fly follow the Delambre family. Andre Delambre is the star of the first film, and he's trying to perfect a teleporter system. And something goes wrong and he turns into a fly monster. The second film follows his son, Felipe Delambre, and he is trying to do the exact same thing, and, well, the exact same thing happens to him, though in a different manner. You see, both of these movies are trying to talk about why humans should be careful with scientific advancement and not go where they really shouldn't be. The first movie does this by starting off by showing our main character, Andre Delambre, dying. Yeah, it's one of those movies that starts at the end and flashes back through the rest of the film. I don't love that plot device. But in this case, his carelessness is just that. He doesn't realize that there's a fly when he goes to teleport himself and ends up having his genes crossed with them, becoming a half-fly human hybrid. The Return of the Fly, his carelessness is just not trusting the right people, as it's his assistant who ends up throwing him inside the teleporter with a fly to turn him into a fly monster. Why he does that, I'm not quite sure. He could have just, locked him in the teleporter, just did this disintegration part of it, and ran off, but he decided to throw a fly in there with him because, I guess. Anyway, so the Fly movies are interesting. Now, the first one isn't so much of a horror movie as it is a discussion of advancement, how far we've come, and how dangerous that progress can be if we let it overtake us. The Return of the Fly is much more of a monster movie. We get to the monster part really quickly, and it focuses more on the monster killing on a rampage. So, what is better? Well, that's a tough question. For me, I prefer The Return of the Fly. It's not usual where I prefer the sequel, but I prefer the much more monster movie take on the subject matter. I feel like the first one's fine, it just takes too long to get where we want to be. Now, there are some better points, and I will get to them as the review goes on. Starting with the characters, and, well, there aren't that many differences as far as the characters are concerned. There are characters in The Return of the Fly that pretty much serve the same purpose as the characters in The Fly. There isn't really a difference between the characters in the movie. That is, with the exception of Francois Delambre, Vincent Price of the movie. You see, in the first movie, he's much more of an audience proxy. He's there to hear the story, and thus react to it. The Return of the Fly, he's the voice of reason. He's the one trying to convince Felipe Delambre to stop. And, well, he doesn't, and, well, he fails in that degree. But it does go to show you that he is the only character with really an arc in both movies. The performances are all great. Now, obviously, Vincent Price is the standout and is the reason why we're talking about these movies, but everyone else in the film does a fantastic job at living up to what he does. They aren't overacting, they aren't underacting, and they aren't buried beneath his performance. Everyone does a fantastic job, but he is definitely still the standout, and is definitely the main reason to watch these movies. So, what really is interesting is how he felt about both movies. The first Fly movie he really liked, and you can tell that because he was used in every piece of marketing, including the trailer, which is mainly him just talking to the audience, and it really sells the movie. The sequel, he didn't really care for. You see, he felt like if you're going to do one movie in black and white, you should do both movies in black and white. And since the first movie is color, he really felt that making the second movie black and white was a mistake. Which leads me to the visuals. Okay, so here's the main differences between the films. You see, the first Fly movie is in color, and the second Fly movie is in black and white. Now, I don't particularly have a preferred part of this. I don't care if a movie's in black and white or in color, as long as the visuals fit. And the visuals in the first movie are a lot better. The cinematography and set design are really better for the film, and definitely has a lot of more better points, and you can definitely tell that the first movie had more of a budget, as opposed to Return of the Fly, which the set design's fine, it's just you can tell it had lesser of a budget and was going for more of a B-movie feel. And speaking of which, the creature design. Oh dear God. So the creature design in the first Fly movie is a little bit subdued and hidden from most of the movie when we get to see it. When we finally get to see it in all of its glory, it's really well done, though it is still obviously a man in a mask. The mask isn't big, goofy, and over the top, and I feel like the costume being more subdued fits as he has more humanity still in him. Then the sequel. This is the one point where I feel like the first Fly movie excels over the other one, because the creature design is awful. So, you know how I said it was really cool to make a more subdued creature for the Fly movie? The sequel does the opposite. It goes with a much more big, goofier head, gives him a weird, limpy leg that slows him down, and it just feels dumb. It feels like this is a B movie, and something that was meant to just be watched once and forgotten about completely at times when you see that stupid design. I feel like they should have stayed more subdued like the first movie, as that works better for this particular type of film. So, that brings us to the music, and it's practically identical. Both scores are really good and do what they need to do. There are not much differences between the two, but that's fine. They're in the same film series, so that's to be expected. So, which of these Fly movies do I prefer? Well, despite the goofier look, I prefer The Return of the Fly. It has a much better pacing to it than the first Fly movie does, in my opinion. I also really, really hate when movies start at the end and then get to the rest of the movie as we work to where we started off. It really is a mistake to do that, and I really do not understand why a lot of films do that. That being said, both Fly movies are pretty good, and I do recommend them for anyone who hasn't seen them. Yes, Vincent Price isn't the star of the movie, he's much more of a supporting actor, but it shows how he builds up a film even when he's not the main lead. Anyway, my time has come to an end on the show, and I must go back to my coffin and sleep for a little while. Who knows, maybe next year I will return and start this all over again. But don't worry, you can always find me in your nightmares, in the dark corner of your eye, anywhere you see something moving, but you don't know what it is. The creakiness under your bed. I'm always there. So remember, stay terrified.